Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back to our series as we delve into the profound reflections of Sheikh Muhammad Metwali El-Sahrawy on the Holy Quran. Today, we delve into a very significant passage from Surah Al-Baqarah, the chapter named, in fact, after the very story we'll be discussing, the story of the cow.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Yusuf. It's a story many of us are familiar with, but the layers of wisdom within it, especially as illuminated in these reflections, are truly vast. It begins with the verse, "Remember when Moses said to his people, 'God commands you to sacrifice a cow.' They said, 'Are you making fun of us?' He answered, 'God forbid that I should be so ignorant.'" Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 67.
Indeed, the text points out that the Quran uses the expression "and when," which means remember when, and interestingly, the reason for this command isn't given immediately. We only find out later, after several verses, that a man was murdered and the Israelites were accusing one another. God intended to bring to light what they were concealing.
And the method was astonishing. They were to strike the deceased with a part of the sacrificed cow to show them how God brings the dead back to life. A sign so they would use their minds. Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 72 and 73.
This delay in revealing the reason is a key point. Usually, we might expect the reason first, then the command. But the reflections highlight that this is the might of the noble Quran. If the reason comes first, it's as if the command is from an equal, someone you might question.
That's a powerful distinction. Like a father's command to his son, or a doctor's to a patient, or a general's to his troops. You don't demand a reason before obeying, because the one giving the order is wiser.
Exactly. And the text argues that if everyone God commands were to ask for the reason before obeying, they'd be obeying the reason not out of faith. At that point, faith isn't truly involved and obedience wouldn't be rewarded by God.
It really emphasizes that faith makes the believer receive God's commands with obedience, whether he knows the reason for them or not. We obey because the command comes from God. That itself is the sufficient reason. It's why so many commands begin with, "O you who believe," addressing those who have already accepted God as their Lord.
So, in this story of the cow, God mentions the command first and the reason later, precisely to explain this notion. Our worship, everything we do, should be in obedience to Him, whether we grasp the immediate wisdom or not.
It makes me think about our acts of worship, like prayer. The reflections state if you pray because it's exercise or a way to wake up early or for limberness, then your prayer has no value or reward. If you want exercise, go to the gym. If you want to worship God, then pray because He told you to pray.
The same applies to fasting. It's not just to feel how a hungry person feels or as a diet. If it's not done to fulfill God's command, it goes unrewarded. The text is very clear. Indeed, God is far more exalted than that anything should be associated with Him, and whoever associates a partner with Him, God will leave all his actions to the one with whom He associated him. This applies to all acts of worship.
So, the whole narrative structure of the cow story is a lesson in pure faith and obedience. God tested the strength of the Israelites' faith, their willingness to obey without hesitation.
But instead, they began to negotiate and defer. The verse says, "And when Moses said to his people," the text offers an interesting linguistic insight here into the word people, in Arabic, qawm.
Yes. It says, "Qawm" literally means a group composed only of men, derived from qiyam, meaning attend to, because men attend to the affairs of their families and womenfolk. It even quotes an Arab poet, "I do not know, indeed I am not even close to knowing," if the family of Hassan are qawm men or women.
And it elaborates on this, stating that attending to the affairs of life is the job of men, while a woman's life is based on her staying protected in her house, with men attending to her needs. And it adds that a woman is a source of tranquility for her husband, household, and children, making her role more important than that of men. That's a significant interpretation.
It is. Then the verse continues, "Surely God bids you sacrifice a cow." The term bid is also explored.
Right. A bid is a request. If the bidder is of higher rank, it's a command. If equal, a request. If lower, it's a supplication or entreaty. The example given is Prophet Zechariah's prayer, "O my Lord, bestow upon me out of your grace the gift of goodly offspring." Surah Al-Imran, verse 38. That was a supplication, not a command.
So, when God bids them, it's a command. And the reflection points out the simplicity of it. Sacrifice a cow. Anyone with the slightest intellectual means would know what to do. If they had just done it, it would have been simple.
But their questioning was foolish. They accused Moses, their own prophet, of mocking them. "Are you making fun of us?" They thought it far-fetched for God to command something so simple without more specifications, as if the problem was too difficult for God to solve with just any cow.
Moses was astounded. How could a prophet jest with God's commands? He realized they were an ignorant people, ignorant about their Lord, their messenger, their hereafter. They judged everything by their own limited standards, not God's. So Moses sought refuge with God from these ignorant people who made an easy thing difficult.
Then comes their first question, as stated in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 68. They said, "Call on your Lord for us, to show us what sort of cow it should be." Notice the phrasing, "your Lord."
Yes, the reflections highlight this as a sign of their weak faith, as if God were only Moses' Lord. It's reminiscent of what they said elsewhere, as mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Verse 24, "Go forth, he and his Lord, both of them, and fight," while they remained in their place.
Their question itself, what sort of cow it should be, was deemed meaningless, because God had already specified a cow, not just an animal.
And the answer came, God says it should be neither too old nor too young, but in between. So do as you are commanded. The term for old here is farid, meaning wise. The reflection explains this beautifully. Cows used for milk and breeding bear many offspring, so their bellies get wider with age. A very wide belly indicates an old cow.
And Becker, for young, could mean it hasn't been mated, or bred only once, or bred many times, but is still young. So, in between these two, God then urges them, "So do as you are commanded."
But they weren't satisfied. They wanted to continue arguing. So they asked another question in verse 69. They said, "Call on your Lord for us, to show us what color it should be," even after being told to just do it.
It's as if they made things hard for themselves, and so God made things hard for them. The answer this time was, God says it should be a bright yellow cow pleasing to the eye. Yellow, fawn-colored, as some translations put it, is common, but her color is very bright, implies an intensity, a pleasing, clean, beautiful, well-proportioned appearance.
The reflection makes an interesting point about specifying colors. A color cannot be specified without being seen, and so colors can only be understood if they are already known. You can't specify an exact shade of yellow just with words, because there are endless shades. It uses the example of painting an apartment. A painter can't guarantee the exact same shade in different rooms if painted on separate days without careful mixing. So bright yellow means an intense, specific yellow.
Things should have been clear by now. Age, color, appearance. But no, they asked yet another question. In verse 70, they said, "Call on your Lord for us to show us exactly what it is. All cows are more or less alike to us. With God's will, we shall be guided."
It's as if God wanted to teach them a lesson through their own stubbornness. They were confused, each pointing to different cows. And finally, they remembered God saying, "With God's will, we shall be guided," after going astray due to their rebelliousness.
And the final, very specific answer came in verse 71. He replied, "It is a perfect and unblemished cow, not trained to till the earth or water the fields." Not worn means not broken in or tamed. The text mentions that our master Ishmael, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was the first to break in horses as an aside.
So this cow had to be untrained, free roaming, not used for plowing or managing irrigation, and sound, no blemish in her, no clipped ears, no brands, no crooked legs, no other color except that bright yellow. These are incredibly difficult specifications.
It's as though God was requiting them for their behavior. They found only one cow fitting this description. And then they said, "Now you have brought the truth," as if Moses hadn't been speaking truth all along.
And so they slaughtered it, though they almost failed to do so. Reluctantly, it shows their tendency to disobey and tarry. This contrasts sharply with the mark of believers, who, as God says in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 13:3, "Be in haste for pardon from their Lord, and a paradise haste to obey," the reflection notes, "is proof of their love for these commands, because you make haste to obey the request of the one you love."
This procrastination, however, served to highlight another matter of faith. The cow that finally met these stringent criteria was rare and unique. This leads to that beautiful story about its owner.
Ah yes, the pious man among the Israelites. He was known for his lawful income, honest speech, and genuine faith. When he was dying, he owned only a female calf and had a wife and young son.
What could he do? He turned to God and said, "Oh God, I leave this calf in your care for my son, and set it free in the pastures." He didn't will it to anyone but entrusted it to God. He told his wife he trusted no one with it but God.
When the son grew up, his mother told him about this trust. He asked where to find it. She advised him, "Be like your father. He trusted in God and sent it out. So you trust in God and seek it out."
So the son prayed, "O God, Lord of Abraham and Moses, return to me that which my father left with you." And the calf, now a grown cow, came back to him.
As he was taking it to his mother, the Israelites saw it and realized this is the cow which the Lord requires. They offered 3 denarii. He consulted his mother. Fearing she'd refuse, they offered, but his mother said it wasn't for sale.
So the son declared he wouldn't sell it for less than the amount of gold that would fill the cow's hide, and they paid him. It's a powerful illustration. The piety of a father made God watch over his children and take care of them and make things easy for them. Now, let's return to the reason for the command, revealed in verse 72. "And when you Israelites killed someone and started to blame one another, although God was to bring what you had concealed to light."
The murdered man was wealthy, with no son, and several relatives eyeing his wealth. Wealth and gold were the life of the Israelites. His own nephew plotted against him, murdered him, and took his wealth.
To clear himself, the nephew took the body and placed it near a neighboring village. In the morning, the villagers found the body. The dead man's family gathered, and the nephew himself was the strongest in accusing the villagers.
The text explains the term dark, each denying being the perpetrator, wanting to cast blame from himself. The law at the time was that if a murdered body was found near a village with no clear evidence, 50 leaders from that village had to swear they didn't kill him and didn't know who did. If fewer than 50, they'd repeat the oath. Then the treasury would pay the blood indemnity.
But God willed something else. He wanted this crime to show the doubters among them the day of resurrection. He wanted the dead man to rise and name his killer, for them to see resurrection while still alive. And God was to bring to light what you were hiding. The nephew thought his plan was foolproof, but God willed otherwise.
So, after all the back and forth about the cow, and after they finally sacrificed it, God commanded them, as in verse 73, we said, "Strike the body with a part of the cow. Strike the dead man with a piece of the sacrificed, dead cow."
Look at the amazing nature of this story. The reflection urges, a piece of a dead body struck another dead body and made it come back to life. If God had revived him without this, they might have said he wasn't truly dead, just in a coma.
But this way, using a part of a dead cow to revive a dead man, it was an undeniable lesson about God's power, especially for such materialistic people. The man rose, spoke the name of his killer, and then God returned him to death.
Thus, God brings the dead to life, and he shows you his signs so that you may understand. They saw, while alive, how God will raise the dead and learned that life isn't just about material means, but God's will.
But then, Yusuf, comes the truly sobering part. Verse 74, "Even after that, your hearts became as hard as rocks, or even harder, after witnessing such a profound miracle."
The reflection asks why the heart is mentioned and why it's described as hardening. It's because the heart is the seat of kindness, mercy, and emotion. When exposed to God's mention, It should fill with mercy and love. It's the organ that solves life's problems. If filled with certitude and faith, the whole body follows.
It refers to Surah Al-Zumar, verse 23, a book whereat shiver the skins of all who stand in awe of their Lord. Then their skins and their hearts soften at the remembrance of God. The skin shivers at the threat of hell. Then mercy comes, and the heart must soften.
And the famous hadith, indeed, there lies in the body a morsel which, if it is sound, the whole body is sound. And if it is corrupted, the whole body is corrupted. Indeed, it is the heart. So the heart is the source of certitude and faith, but also hardness and disbelief.
When the heart forgets God, it hardens. It imagines that there is nothing but this worldly life and matter, seeking it in any way, leading to injustice and wickedness. Such a person might see someone dying of hunger and not offer bread. When faith leaves the heart, mercy leaves.
And faith leaves the other body parts too. The hand reaches to steal, the eye looks at the forbidden, the foot walks to a bar instead of the mosque, the heart stores the faith for the whole body.
So their hearts became like rocks, or harder still. A rock is familiarly hard, something the Israelites knew well from the desert, like when Moses struck the rock for water.
But how can hearts be harder than rocks? The reflection clarifies, do not think of the material softness of the heart, but rather think of how it fulfills its function. A mountain is meant to be hard, a peg for the earth. That hardness is its function. But hardness is not the heart's function. It should be soft.
It uses the analogy of a hook. A hook, for example, is crooked, and this crookedness makes it perform its function correctly. So, a crooked hook is a good hook, but a hardened heart is failing its function, doing the opposite of what it should.
Then God reminds them, for surely from some rock streams burst forth others, surely split asunder, and water issues from them, and others surely fall down in awe of God. These are things they witnessed. Moses striking the rock and fountains flowing, grace touching rocks.
The reflection notes a difference. When a rock gushes forth, water bursts out. If streams burst forth, the water comes to you. There is a difference between a blessing which you should go to and a blessing which comes to you.
And rocks falling in awe of God refers to when God manifested himself, the mountain, and it crumbled, as in Surah Al-A'raf, verse 143, an event involving Moses. So God uses examples from their own experience.
Grace touched rocks, making water flow, making them crumble in awe. But when their hearts hardened, they were no longer touched by mercy or softness. After all God revealed to them in the Torah, his grace, mercy, shelter, forgiveness, their hearts should have softened.
The verse concludes with a solemn warning. He is not unaware of what you do. Remember that nothing escapes God. You will meet him. You need his mercy. So do not let your hearts harden, lest God cast you out of his mercy.
Subhanallah. Such profound lessons from one story. It covers the nature of true faith, the importance of unquestioning obedience to God's commands, the consequences of argumentation and delay, the unseen help that comes from piety, the reality of resurrection, and the grave danger of a hardened heart.
Absolutely. It's a comprehensive spiritual education encapsulated in these verses and their explanation. Miriam, what stands out to you most from today's discussion?
For me, Yusuf, it's the stark contrast between the simplicity of God's initial command, sacrifice a cow, and the complex, difficult situation the Israelites created for themselves through their arguments and reluctance. It's a powerful reminder that true submission brings ease, while resistance and doubt only lead to hardship. And the idea that a father's piety can extend such blessings to his children, as in the story of the calf, is deeply moving and hopeful. And for you, Yusuf, what stands out most?
What resonates most with me is the profound theological argument about obeying God's commands out of pure faith rather than only when we understand the reason. The idea that questioning a command from a superior God, in this case, as if he were an equal, undermines the very essence of faith, is a critical lesson. Also, the vivid imagery of the heart, its potential for softness and mercy versus its capacity to become harder than rock, even a rock that itself responds to God's power, is a very stark and memorable warning for all of us.
May Allah grant us hearts that are soft and receptive to His remembrance, and protect us from the hardening of hearts. Ameen.
Ameen. And may He allow us to truly benefit from Sheikh Muhammad Metwali al-Sharawi reflections. Join us next time as we continue our journey. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.